Hi, I'm Becky, and welcome to another episode of Diet Culture Can Fork Off. Now, if you've been listening for a while, you know that I help women over 30 that are stuck in diet cycles create that food freedom, feel confident in their bodies, and that's all by breaking down diet culture's hold without focusing on the scales and missing out on living. And that's all through my one-to-one Empower coaching or my Misfit Club group coaching. In today's episode, I'm going to help you understand more about emotional eating because this is a subject that comes up a lot. And honestly, you might not even be aware that you're doing it. And I know a lot of my clients as well, when we talk about emotional eating, they're like, I don't think I emotionally eat. And then when we dive into it, there are elements that are popping up. And that's absolutely fine because you know what? Food is tasty and it tastes good sometimes it's what we want. But I'm going to talk to you a bit more about the detail about it because when it comes to emotional eating, it is most definitely not about willpower and discipline, okay? You know that I really dislike using those terms because there's usually something deeper going on. Like, it's not really about the willpower, it's actually, oh, actually, I'm feeling really stressed. Or it's not about the discipline, it's like, I'm feeling really tired, I'm exhausted, I'm overwhelmed. You know, it's not like when people say, I just need more willpower. It's like, no, you don't. You need to understand what's actually going on, okay? Because that's what I get into. That's what I love doing, why I love doing what I do, because I love diving into those deeper rooted issues. So, yes, so it's not about willpower, it's not about discipline. It's about patterns as well and coping mechanisms as well, because many of us turn to food to self-soothe. Maybe it's to reward ourselves, and we can use it as punishment, like through restriction as well, you know, and that's something that I actually used to do quite a lot. So what's really important to remember as well is food is way much more than food. We have such an emotional attachment to food. Like, yes, it is fuel, it gives us energy, but it's so much more than that. It can bring you the comfort and everything, like I said, but we have these like nostalgic attaches to it as well. Like, for example, it can remind you of good times, maybe positive childhood memories, you know, like having ice cream on the beach with your grandparents. Maybe it's having a certain family meal that brought everyone together. Maybe it's like certain sweets that we had as a child. You know, there's so much more to food than just the nourishment side. You know, there is the emotional attachment, and I think it's really important to understand that as well and not dismiss it, because yeah, I absolutely, you know, like just thinking, you know, certain traditions that you may have around certain times of year, and it'd be like, oh no, but I need, you know, just thinking with Christmas just gone by, like you might have certain foods that you enjoy at Christmas because it's tradition, it reminds you of those good memories, and that's okay. And I think like it's really important to not dismiss those and not to push them away and not to feel like, well, it's bad, like, you know, but I really like these because why? It might bring you some joy, you know, and we do forget about that. But anyway, I could bang on about this kind of stuff for ages. So I really want to get into why emotional eating happens firstly. Okay. So how I mentioned before, when we emotionally eat, it is rarely about the food itself. Like, it's more about the emotional relief it gives us. And maybe we learned as kids that food was a treat after a hard day, or it could distract us from stress, but like, or it could, you know, be a reward, like I said, like that. Oh, you've done really well, like you've done really well at this, you deserve an ice cream or a cake. You know, there's those things there as well. And the key to breaking free isn't about cutting out emotional eating, it's understanding what is driving it, okay? Because if you just go like, I need to stop emotional eating, it's like, no, you need to understand exactly why, what is driving it in the first place, okay? So I often say this to my clients as well, like that sometimes the food is the thing that's going to make you feel better. And that's okay. We just don't want it to be the only tool that you have, because at the moment, that's what could be happening is you're not really understanding why it's happening, what's driving it, and you are always turning to food. You don't understand what other tools you could use or how to manage certain emotions. And you know, that's absolutely fine. Like, because a lot of people, when they start with me, it was exactly in that spot. And like I said, unless you start looking at these things, you wouldn't be aware. Like I always say, as you know, if you've been listening to my podcast for a while, like awareness is the first step. So yeah, it's not really about the food. It's what it's doing for you. So food does give us a dopamine hit, yeah, that feel good chemical in our brain. And that's why stress eating feels like it works in the moment. But as you know, over time, it doesn't actually fix the issue, the stress, the sadness, the anxiety, or whatever it is that you're trying to escape. And you might have experienced that, like enjoying it in the moment, like, oh, this tastes so good, feels so good. And then there's a guilt spiral after that can hit, and that can really bring you crashing down. Your mood, how you feel about yourself, the negative self-talk, but if you haven't been taught healthier coping mechanisms, then food does naturally become your go-to. And like I said, about understanding your emotions and what is actually going on, because we often think of like emotional eating as overeating, but as I mentioned, it can also about being restricting the food as well as a way to punish ourselves. Like, have you ever told yourself like, oh, I was bad yesterday, like, oh, I shouldn't have eaten those things, so I need to eat less today? And then you start cutting meals out, maybe skipping meals. That's emotional restriction. And both behaviours, the emotional eating and the emotional restriction, they reinforce that feeling of guilt, making it even harder to build a healthy relationship with food, I should say. So eating to self-soothe is often done unconsciously as well. Like, we don't really know what's happening in the moment. We don't know what we're doing, if that makes sense. Like, before you know it, you're reaching for the chocolate and you're having it like in front of the TV or whatever it may be, and you're not very conscious that that's what you're doing. Okay. I should say, like, boredom comes under this as well. It's not just about, it could be boredom, which is another emotion that we often forget about with emotional eating. Because again, it's providing that dopamine hit. And if if you're someone that's like getting bored and you're seeking that like something exciting, that food can give you that instantly. And so yeah, what we don't want to do is reinforce these feelings of guilt, and that's with the restriction and the overeating, because we want to build that healthy relationship with food. So, like I mentioned, done unconsciously. So skipping meals to regain control can often lead to binging later as well. So what can happen is you're like, right, I'm not gonna eat because I had that big meal last night and I had the pudding and I shouldn't have had that. So I'm gonna not eat breakfast, and then you go hungry, and then it can lead into binging or overeating later in the day. I would say as well, because of working with a lot of neurodivergent clients as well, with ADHD, obviously this comes up quite a lot with seeking that dopamine hit, but also around forgetting to eat and things like that, that then you end up having binges later because you just realize that you're really, really hungry. Also with my ADHD clients, my autistic clients as well, with not having the hunger cues. This can lead into those binges later on, and it's why so many people struggle with emotional eating in different ways. Okay, because for neurotypicals and neurodiverse people, there's lots of different reasons why emotional eating comes in, and this is why it's such a big piece of what I coach, and why I talk about this so much, because understanding why you're doing it in the first place is going to really, really help. Okay. So, the three biggest reasons why we turn to food, okay? First of all is to relieve stress. So it can numb the stress. Sometimes the restriction comes in here as well. Like I said, if you're really, really stressed, sometimes you might turn to not eating. For me, that was definitely more of a control thing. So when I was stressed, and usually it's because things were out of my control, the only thing I could control was food, and I used to get myself quite worked up anyway through stress. So the thing I did was restrict. So You know, it could be that you're self-soothing through food, or it could be that you're restricting for food. But yeah, 3 biggest reasons. First one is definitely to relieve stress. The second one is to lift our mood, like eating for comfort. So like I said, giving you that dopamine hit. And the third one is rewarding yourself. So using food to celebrate, which I know we are all guilty of. Like we're like, I'm going to treat myself because you know what, I'm going to treat myself today. I want that I want that cake or I want that chocolate. But that's the 3 biggest reasons. So as I mentioned before, the goal here isn't to eliminate emotional eating completely. We definitely need it, and sometimes it is the thing that's going to help. Okay, and I think once you can let go of that guilt and that shame, it makes life a lot easier. And that's something I would work on with my clients, my one-to-one clients, quite a lot, is letting go of that guilt and shame around it. Because what you need to do, first of all, is just pause long enough to recognize what is happening. Like I said, the awareness is really what's going to give you power. Like when you are aware of what's going on, that's when you can make maybe a different choice. But you have control over that, and you have the power to make that decision. Okay. Like I said, like sometimes the food is the tool that you need, and that's absolutely fine, but don't let it be the only tool. Emotional eating isn't bad. It's just a sign that something needs attention. So pausing allows you to recognize what this emotional, what this emotion is, or is it physical hunger as well? Okay, because there is a difference between physical hunger and psychological hunger. So I'm gonna talk to you a little bit more about this as well. So first of all, physical hunger. Like this is something that like gradually builds over time. Like usually you feel it in your stomach, you know, that growling, that emptiness. Sometimes you could get lightheaded, you know, as well, start feeling quite tired if you've gone quite a long time without food. Also, if you're physically hungry, you're usually open to different foods. Okay, you're like, okay, I could eat more balanced meal. I do, you know, I'll have a bit of broccoli. Don't know why broccoli came into bed, but you know, that's it, like an apple or something. Like you're open to different foods, like because what we need to be aware of as well, that balanced meals will satisfy. Also neutral or low energy, like so no strong emotions going on. Eating is intentional, so you stop when you're full, then that's easier. And you feel full and energized after eating, and it usually happens 3 to 5 hours since your last meal. So that's physical hunger. So psychological hunger, okay, you have this like sudden intense craving, and that usually comes from the mind. Stress, boredom, other emotions, like maybe it's sadness, like lots of, like, you know, whatever it is it may be. The cravings are usually very specific around certain foods. Like there's more comfort foods like sweets, salty snacks, fast food, and it is triggered by emotions like I said, the stress, the sadness, the loneliness, and it feels urgent and impulsive. So you're like, oh God, I really want chocolate now, if that makes sense. And you also find it harder to stop eating as well. Then this could often lead to guilt, regret, discomfort, and that can happen shortly after eating. So you get these sudden, like psychological hungers, this sudden intense craving that can happen like anytime, like even if you've already eaten a meal. So it's really important to recognize the difference between physical hunger and psychological hunger. But it is important to recognize that sometimes we might be eating for other reasons too. When it comes down to our values, like having a birthday cake, for example, or when it's someone's birthday, having that celebration, maybe, going out for a coffee and a cake with a friend to have a catch up. Those times you might be eating for different reasons. Maybe, your child has made some cookies or something and they really want you to try them, or maybe they've brought you back a present and it's food related and they want to sit down and have a chat and eat what something they've brought you. There's so many different reasons here. So it's really important to recognize that there's these kind of caveats in here as well around that, sometimes there will be different reasons that you might be wanting or needing wanting to eat, that that it doesn't fall into those two categories. Okay, so they are caveats, of course. So something I talk about in Empower is urge surfing. So the science of cravings is that urges usually last between 20 to 30 minutes. So giving into those urges can strengthen the habit. So if you just give in straight away, you're going to strengthen that habit. That's neuro pathway is just going to be like, this is what we do, and it just becomes something you're not even aware of, and you're not even resisting it. So what you need to do is, like I said, pause. Pause and surf the wave. If that makes sense. So if you can just keep saying to yourself, I'm going to surf the wave, that helps weaken it. So, being mindful of like your reaction is really important, and why pausing immediately can help really break that cycle. So, we have like loads of tools like this in Empower, like to help break down like the emotional eating, what's going on, so you can understand and be more in tune with your body. Also looking at like what tools will help you in moments like, is it stress driven, is it overwhelm driven, like is it loneliness, whatever might be going on for you, and then looking at what we can build into that. Because that's what's going to really, really break like the emotional eating, the binge eating, and breaking those habit loops. It's really important here to mention the link as well between emotional eating and ADHD and autism too, because I did kind of touch on that earlier. Because with ADHD, you do get the impulsivity, can't talk now, and cravings. So that sometimes can be difficulty resisting urges, and that leads to spontaneous eating as well, through like dopamine seeking, as I mentioned. And that's why you tend to seek like quick rewards, which obviously you can get through food. Also looking for like highly palatable foods, because they provide like a like rapid dopamine boost. So then eating can become a self-soothing habit when your energy or focus is low. Common patterns is like forgetting to eat, extreme hunger leading to binging, or eating purely based on habit or emotions. Like things like hunger cues may not register until you're very irritable, or you're fatigued, or headache starts kicking. So using structured meal times and external cues can really help with those patterns as well. With autism, it's usually around like sensory overwhelm. So you use food to self-soothe when maybe the world feels a bit too loud or a bit too bright. Routine and sameness as well, like turning to familiar foods or safe foods when everything else feels a bit unpredictable. Difficulty identifying emotions as well. So when you feel something but you can't name it, so you can turn to food to manage it. Masking as well, like if you're holding yourself together all day, then releasing the tension through food once you're finally alone as well. Like again, it's that self-soothing, and it's something that can be comforting, especially if it's something that's reminds you, like we said before, that like childhood, feeling safe, that kind of thing as well. And also the stress obviously from social situations, like if you're like having a bit of a the come down of like being around lots of social like in social situations, lots of people, eating as well can help soothe that as well. So really bear in mind that there's these elements that come in to play as well if you are neurodivergent. I really love this quote. Feelings are like waves. We can't stop them from coming, but we can choose which one to surf. So I think it's a good one to like kind of help out, help on the way out here. So remember, we can't stop these feelings. We can't stop the waves, but we can choose which ones to surf and which ones to ride out. And of course, I help my clients delve way deeper into this. It's just a little bit, taster of what I do in a much deeper and powerful setting. with my one-to-one clients. This is something we dive in a lot to with my one-to-one clients, because what's really, really important is that you learn the tools. You first of all have the awareness, like I said, and learn the tools that help, understanding what is going on, and finding what works for you and your brain, and your lifestyle. So many factors to come into play. So I do have spots open now for my one-to-one coaching. You can see the links below to apply, or just message me if you just want to know a bit more, and I will speak to you soon.